Their betrayal built my revenge, and my revenge would bury them. I never imagined the day I would look at them and feel nothing but cold clarity. My name is Isabella Reyes, and I spent years loyal to the one person I thought I could trust, my older brother, Adrian. In the small, cutthroat world of real estate development, family was everything, or so I had believed. Adrian, charismatic and persuasive, was the golden star of the company we had built together. I was the one in the shadows, handling the logistics, the contracts, the details he never wanted to see. I thought our partnership was unbreakable. The company itself, Reyes and Company, was a tower of glass and steel, built on deals, promises, and relationships that spanned the city. Our office hummed with ambition, every meeting a battle of wit, every handshake a test of trust. I had poured my life into it, ensuring every transaction ran smoothly, every client felt valued, and every project was flawless. I trusted Adrian to do what I could not: sell the vision, charm the investors, lead with style. But the first crack appeared subtly. A client I had nurtured for months was suddenly told the deal was Adrian's vision alone, his name now attached to my work. Emails I had drafted vanished or were corrected, leaving me sidelined. Compliments I had received privately were praised publicly, but only when filtered through Adrian. At first, I rationalized it: maybe he didn't realize, maybe it was the stress of expansion. But deep down, a seed of unease began to grow. Then came the betrayal I could not ignore. Adrian had quietly manipulated a critical deal, diverting funds from a joint investment into an account in his name. The money wasn't just ours, it was my future, my career, my trust, stolen and hidden under the guise of a strategic maneuver. The realization hit me like a thunderclap: the person I had defended, the person I had called family, had turned against me entirely. In that moment, the world shifted. The bright city lights beyond our office windows felt cold and unforgiving. I understood, with piercing clarity, that the loyalty I had given freely had been weaponized against me. But amidst the shock, a dangerous thought began to crystallize: betrayal cuts deep, but it also ignites something darker. I clenched my fists, letting the quiet of the office envelope me. Adrian may have thought I was powerless, invisible, and loyal beyond reason, but he had underestimated the one thing that would become my greatest weapon: me. And the reckoning had only just begun. The signs were small at first, almost imperceptible, but they added up like cracks forming in glass. Adrian's behavior began to shift in subtle, unnerving ways. He would sidestep my questions in meetings, answer vaguely, or deflect responsibility with a smile that once felt warm but now carried a faint edge. Projects I had meticulously prepared were suddenly revised by him or his inner circle. I noticed emails disappearing from my inbox, documents slightly altered, and client praise subtly redirected. At first, I told myself it was stress, oversight, or office politics. But the unease deepened when junior associates I trusted seemed nervous around me, their glances fleeting, their explanations incomplete. It was as if a quiet conspiracy was growing in plain sight, and I was only just noticing the tremors. Even the clients I had nurtured for years seemed to sense the tension. Calls went unanswered, emails returned with curt replies, meetings rescheduled without my knowledge. Every interaction, once a smooth collaboration, now carried a subtle sting of exclusion. I began questioning my instincts, my judgment, and even my memory of events. Was I imagining this? Or had Adrian truly begun to dismantle the foundation we had built together? The emotional toll was crushing. Sleep became restless, punctuated with dreams of contracts being shredded and numbers vanishing from ledgers. My mind replayed conversations, trying to find signs I had missed, searching for proof of intent in every word and gesture. Each day, I felt less secure in the office I had helped construct, more vulnerable to someone I had trusted implicitly. The anxiety built quietly, a constant pressure in my chest that dulled my focus and made even small tasks feel monumental. Then, the unease became undeniable. I overheard a conversation in the conference room, just enough to catch a single, damning line. She doesn't need to know the details. This is already in motion. My heart sank. The words were ambiguous yet heavy with implication. A plan was unfolding, and I was no longer part of it, or worse, I was the target. I retreated to my office, closing the door behind me, hands trembling as I sifted through digital files for anything that could clarify what I had just heard. Every timestamp, every email thread, every client record suddenly felt like a potential clue, a piece of a puzzle I hadn't realized was incomplete. As I stared at the glowing screen, the sense of danger became palpable. Something was coming, something deliberate, and the person I had trusted most, Adrian, was at the center of it. The betrayal wasn't yet fully visible, but the tension in the air was undeniable. And in that quiet, charged moment, I understood one terrifying truth. The storm was already forming, and I had no choice but to prepare for it. The full weight of Adrian's betrayal hit me all at once, and it shattered the fragile balance I had clung to for years. I discovered it that evening when I accessed the company's financial records, tracing the client accounts I had managed for months. Every deal I had nurtured, every contract I had meticulously crafted, had been quietly siphoned into an account under Adrian's name. He hadn't just stolen recognition, he had stolen money, trust, and my very future. Shock froze me at my desk. The betrayal wasn't subtle or opportunistic, it was deliberate, calculated, and ruthless. Adrian had leveraged my loyalty, my dedication, and my unquestioning trust to line his own pockets, all while keeping the rest of the office in the dark. The projects I had championed, the clients I had won, and the strategies I had developed were now his trophies, and the proof was damning. Anger followed quickly, burning through the initial shock. How could someone so close, someone I had called family, orchestrate such a comprehensive betrayal? Every memory of shared victories, late nights, and painstaking planning now twisted into bitter reminders of deception. Every compliment he had given, every pat on the shoulder, every word of encouragement, lies. Each one had been a carefully placed brick in the wall that would isolate me, leaving me powerless to intervene. Heartbreak lingered beneath the fury. I had trusted Adrian completely, believing that our partnership was built on mutual respect and shared ambition. But the revelation unveiled the truth. I had been a pawn in his pursuit of power, manipulated at every turn. The thought of all I had sacrificed, the hours, the energy, the moments I had invested in the company, being used against me felt unbearable. And yet, amidst the collapse, clarity emerged. The evidence was all there: emails, financial statements, client correspondences. The betrayal wasn't invisible, it was documented, undeniable, and ripe for exposure. Every underhanded move Adrian had made left a trail, and the realization struck me like lightning: I had power too. My loyalty, the very trait he exploited, could become the weapon that would turn his empire into ruins. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the numbers, the contracts, the meticulously hidden fraud, and allowed myself one long, deep breath. Shock, anger, heartbreak, it all churned within me, but now it was tempered by a dangerous resolve. I understood that the person who thought they had eliminated me had underestimated the quiet strength that loyalty can forge. The question was no longer whether I could respond. It was how. And as the first flicker of a plan began to form in my mind, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: Adrian had built my revenge for me. For 2 nights, I barely slept, staring at my reflection in the office window as the city lights blurred into streaks of neon. The betrayal burned in my chest, heavy and relentless. Every detail I had once trusted, every ounce of loyalty I had given, had been twisted into a weapon against me. For a moment, despair threatened to consume me entirely. Then came the spark. While reviewing archived emails and financial logs, I noticed a small, almost imperceptible inconsistency: an account transfer that hadn't been fully disguised. It was a trivial detail to anyone else, but to me it screamed of opportunity. Adrian's confidence, his arrogance, had left cracks in the fortress he thought impenetrable. Proof existed. And proof was power. The trigger moment came unexpectedly. Maya, a junior associate I had mentored quietly over the years, slipped a printout across my desk. "I've seen some things, emails, client notes, financial statements. You need to see them." Her hands trembled slightly, but the determination in her eyes mirrored my own. I scanned the documents and realized that with careful planning, we could reconstruct every scheme, every hidden maneuver, every theft Adrian had committed. Clarity replaced despair. My loyalty, once exploited as a weakness, could be the very weapon that would dismantle him. Every late night, every meticulous spreadsheet, every long conversation with clients, I could reclaim it, not by force, but through strategy. I felt a dangerous kind of focus settle over me. I would be deliberate, precise, and relentless. The transformation began immediately. Gone was the quiet, overlooked strategist who had been dismissed and undervalued. In her place stood someone who had seen betrayal firsthand and understood the art of patience. I mapped out the evidence, identified allies within the company, and imagined the precise sequence of moves that would expose Adrian publicly, legally, and irreversibly. I no longer feared the weight of the task. Instead, it became a calculated challenge, one I could master. By the next morning, my resolve was absolute. I no longer dwelled on the heartbreak, the stolen credit, or the betrayal. Every ounce of energy, every thought, every plan was channeled toward one goal: reclaim what was mine and ensure Adrian could never harm me, or anyone else, again. I stood by the window, the first rays of dawn cutting through the glass, and whispered to myself, they thought I was weak. They thought my loyalty made me invisible. They were wrong. A quiet power surged through me. The reckoning had begun, and when it came, it would leave no room for mercy. I would fight back. And I would win. Revenge, I learned, is less about fury and more about engineering. After the awakening, I stopped hoping something would fix what Adrian broke. I began building the fix myself. If he thought his arrogance made him untouchable, he hadn't accounted for how methodical I could be when I was no longer afraid. Step 1. Assemble every scrap of proof. Maya and I spent nights reconstructing the past, recovering deleted drafts, pulling version histories, and stitching together email threads that proved authorship. Where Adrian had rewired client allocations, server logs still showed who first touched the files. Where numbers had been rerouted, bookkeeping entries revealed the detours. Each recovered document was another link in a chain that led straight to him. Step 2. Recruit allies who couldn't be bought by charm. Marco, the IT admin I'd quietly mentored, pulled audit trails that banks respected. Priya, a no-nonsense lawyer I'd once helped through a personal referral, agreed to file quiet preservation orders and prepare subpoenas that would snap shut the moment we moved. Elena, an investigative reporter with a reputation for ruthless accuracy, wanted the facts, nothing sensational, just ironclad truth, and she promised to hold the story until the legal scaffolding was locked. Step 3. Build legal scaffolding. Priya worked in the background, filing preservation requests and lining up regulatory contacts. Her goal was surgical: ensure nothing could be scrubbed and make any attempted cover-up legally painful and public. Exposure without enforceable pressure would be just noise. Legal teeth would make it a collapse. Step 4. Set the bait and timing. Adrian loved spectacle, award nights, investor dinners, speeches where he polished his halo. So I created a stage he couldn't resist. We seeded a whisper about a major partnership tied to an investor gala he was already planning. Predictably, he booked the biggest room and invited the right people. While he spent his energy rehearsing applause lines, we synchronized everything: Elena's publication, Priya's filings, Marco's flagged accounts, and Maya's client testimonies, all to land in the same heartbeat. Step 5. Rehearse until flawless. We mapped the sequence like a military operation: Elena's article drops, Priya's regulatory packet files, banks freeze flagged accounts, and Marco's logs are released to show the trail. Client statements and internal memos would corroborate every claim. No single piece would be enough to be dismissed, together they would become undeniable. Throughout it all, Adrian lived in rehearsed confidence. He posted triumphant photos, toasted in the lobby, and practiced his speech. His performance was our advantage, arrogance blinds the best. 2 nights before the reveal, we gathered in a dim conference room. The USB with the compiled evidence lay between us like a small, heavy heart. Elena's draft headline glowed on her tablet. Priya's phone pinged with confirmation from the regulator. Maya's hands trembled for a second and then steadied. Outside, limousines rolled up to the country club for Adrian's gala. My calendar buzzed, investor dinner, 8 p.m. I slid the USB into my jacket, feeling the weight of the plan and the risk. I stood at the office door, breath steady, and walked into the elevator. The doors began to close, and my thumb hovered over the cap of the USB. The gala glittered with chandeliers, laughter, and clinking glasses. Adrian moved through the room like a king among subjects, his smile polished, confident, untouchable. He didn't notice me slipping past the crowd, Maya at my side, the USB burning with proof in my pocket. It started with subtle murmurs. Elena's article went live across every major financial outlet, Reyes and Company. Scandal, betrayal, theft, and deception exposed. The headlines flashed on phones across the room. Investors paused mid-toast, clients exchanged worried glances, and the whispers began. The story laid out the evidence in meticulous detail, the diverted funds, manipulated accounts, stolen deals, and falsified credit. Adrian's carefully curated image began to crack. Then Priya's filings hit. Banks froze the accounts tied to Adrian's unauthorized transfers. Regulators' emails pinged in executive inboxes. Contracts were suspended, and auditors prepared to descend. What Adrian had thought invisible was now locked in legal ironclad chains. Panic rippled through the gala. The room that had applauded him moments ago now buzzed with doubt. On the main screen, Maya stepped forward, displaying reconstructed project timelines. Every contract, every email, every client meeting I had managed was highlighted, showing how Adrian had systematically erased my contributions. The evidence was irrefutable. The audience, investors and employees alike, could see the truth unfold in real time. Adrian's face drained of color. He opened his mouth to speak, to charm, to deny, but no one listened. His words fell into the growing murmur of disbelief. Phones captured every moment, social media lit up instantly. His empire of arrogance, built on stolen trust, began to crumble in front of him. Security quietly guided him to the exit as murmurs turned to murmurs of confirmation, betrayal uncovered, fraud documented, the once invincible leader exposed. Clients began quietly removing themselves from partnerships, and whispers of lawsuits spread like wildfire. The man who had thought himself untouchable now had nowhere to hide. I stayed back, silent, letting the storm I had engineered unfold. No shouting, no gloating, just quiet satisfaction. Adrian had underestimated me, the quiet, loyal one, and in doing so, he had constructed his own downfall. My patience, my diligence, my loyalty, once mocked, had become the precise instruments of his undoing. By the time the gala emptied, I stood alone on the polished floor, the soft hum of chaos echoing behind me. The city lights outside reflected on the glass like 1,000 silent witnesses. I felt no triumph, no malice, only the clarity of justice served and the power reclaimed. The betrayal had been devastating, but the reckoning had been exquisite. Adrian had built my revenge with his own arrogance, and I had delivered it with precision. I walked out, head held high, knowing that the quietest person in the room had always been the strongest enemy. The morning after the gala, the city woke to headlines that made Adrian's empire look like a mirage, Reyes and Company. Exposed, betrayal, theft, and collapse, CEO's arrogance leads to downfall, and the quiet strategist who brought an empire to its knees. Banks froze his accounts, investors withdrew, and regulators began investigations that would make recovery impossible. The empire he had built on charm and manipulation lay in ruins. Ethan and Claire, his closest allies and enablers, vanished from the industry almost overnight. Bonuses, promotions, and public accolades, all the privileges they had seized through deception, disintegrated as quickly as they had appeared. Reputation, their most prized possession, became their heaviest burden. For me, the aftermath was different. Walking into the office for the first time since the storm, I was no longer the quiet strategist who had been overlooked. Colleagues greeted me with respect, clients returned, and recognition came not as a gift but as a reflection of the work I had always done. Loyalty, once dismissed as weakness, had become the foundation of my strength and credibility. The experience transformed me. I was sharper, more decisive, and unshakable. The betrayal that had once crushed me became the crucible that forged a new version of myself, someone who could see deception clearly, anticipate moves, and wield patience as a weapon. Every sleepless night, every pang of anger, every moment of doubt had prepared me for this moment. And then came the poetic justice, the truth that made every slight worthwhile. Adrian had assumed my quiet loyalty was weakness. He had believed that charm and bravado could shield him from scrutiny. He had underestimated the one person who had always understood the entire system, the one whose work had built his empire, me. His arrogance had sown the seeds of his ruin, watered by the very loyalty he tried to exploit. The hand that tried to bury me became the same hand that dug its own grave. Now, to you watching this story, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Have you ever felt your loyalty exploited or dismissed? Share your experiences in the comments. I want to hear your story. And if you crave more tales of cunning, betrayal, and triumph, make sure to subscribe. Remember, sometimes the quietest person in the room is not the weakest, they are the strongest enemy, patiently waiting for the perfect moment to strike.